Hello and welcome to Beyond Business, where we look at the latest trends in the global economy. Today we take a closer look at multi-billion euro deals gone wrong. When governments go shopping for big-ticket items like defense equipment and infrastructure projects, the contracts tend to be supersized. It brings intense scrutiny, and the tenders are often tarnished by allegations of wrongdoing. In a moment, we'll talk about what companies can do to prevent corruption and bribery charges. First, though, let's head to Brazil for a look at a rail deal hit by problems of a different kind. Brazil has launched a tender for a high-speed line between Sao Paulo and Rio. The government has tried and failed 3 times before, now hoping it'll be a case of 4th time lucky.
It's Brazil's only passenger train line, 664 kilometers of track linking the cities of Vitória and Belo Horizonte. Journey time 13 hours, average speed 50 kilometers per hour. For the government, modernizing what little rail network the country has is now a priority. The flagship project, a high-speed train between Rio de Janeiro and Sao Paulo, the TAV. But since the plan was first floated in 2009, it struggled to stay on track.
At the beginning, the government launched a call for tenders, which expected the winning bidders to be responsible for the whole project, from construction to the implementation of systems to operations and maintenance. But this kind of bidding framework didn't work. There was no interest. We didn't have a single offer.
In October, a new bidding process was launched with one contract for the construction of the railway line and another to build the trains and run the system. To encourage bids from firms with the necessary know-how, the government agreed to cover 10 billion euros worth of civil engineering costs, all of which has made the project much more attractive to potential bidders. So far, at least 5 companies have expressed interest in joining the project. The South Korean firm Hyundai, Germany's Siemens, Japanese company Mitsui, Talgo in Spain, and France's Alstom, the makers of the TGV and holder of the rail speed record.
This first bidding process won't just be about choosing the company which will supply the hardware, but also the firm that will run the service. So what we're offering isn't just a proposal from Alstom, but one based on the application of all French high-speed rail technology. And we've already worked on this for many years with our partners in France's National Rail Company, which uses our trains not only in France, but across Europe.
And to make the best possible offer, candidates are turning to lawyers specialized in making international bids. One of them agreed to talk to us. The Siqueira Castro firm was approached by 2 construction companies, but it's chosen to represent just one of them. Their goal, to secure the mega contract for their clients.
The first role for a lawyer in this case is to analyze the bid, analyze the contract, find the legal flaws, anticipate certain problems which can happen during the bidding process, and help the company involved to better understand the content of the bid as well as the contract, so it can go ahead and sign it if it wins the bid.
And so the contest has finally begun and the stakes are high. Brazil has already said it wants to build other high-speed train lines, not just the connection between its 2 biggest cities. If all goes to plan, the winning bid will be revealed at the end of May 2013.
Okay, a look there at what an international tender can look like. And joining us now for more about when public tenders go wrong is Philippe Montigny. He's the founder and CEO of Ethic Intelligence, which advises companies on how to work against corruption. Welcome to the program. Now, it is not unusual, unfortunately, to hear corruption allegations in connection with international tenders when governments go shopping for fighter planes or infrastructure projects. How big of a problem do you think it is, in your mind, corruption, when we talk about international tenders?
First of all, when you have a large call for tenders, it's clear that companies need to worked on this issue for years with the help of a lot of consultants and agents. And some companies might be tempted to use third parties to buy confidential information or to have an influence on the decision. So the temptation is there. This is clear. Now, we have to distinguish, I think, between companies which are headquartered in the OECD area, where the OECD Anti-Corruption Convention is enforced, and for them it is a crime to pay bribes abroad. Now the competition is also with companies which are outside of the OECD, where bribing a foreign public officials is not yet a crime. So the competition is sometimes a bit unfair on this issue.
Now, we need to point out that no corruption allegations have been raised against the project that we just saw, or against the example that we just saw in Brazil. But just give us an idea, are those the types of projects and sectors that are usually hit by these kind of corruption allegations?
Each time you are involved in a very large project with a lot of money, each time you are in a project whereby the public authorities are involved, then yes, there is a possibility of corruption.
Just tell us a little bit more about what corruption could look like in these kind of examples, and who would be responsible for it.
So years ago, it would have been very simple. A company would have paid more or less directly some money on the account of a civil servant of a foreign country. Nowadays, it's no longer the case.
Hoping that individual will influence the bidding process.
Now, this is too visible. There is too great attention of the public opinion on this sort of thing. So corruption will take other forms. For instance, through third parties who will be involved in helping the company, but who might divert part of the remunerations to pay foreign public officials, or to pay someone in the family, or to pay a company linked to a public officials. So the circuits are really more complex. So now for companies, what it is important is to make sure that no one in the company will use his power to pay a bribe. So companies need to raise awareness on this issue and to have adequate procedures to fight corruption.
Tell us about your role in this, or the role of Ethic Intelligence, your company.
What we do mainly is certification. We certify not that there was no bribe or no bribe will be paid, but we certify that the company has put in place adequate procedures to fight corruption.
Now, why do you think that tenders are so often subjected to corruption allegations? Some would argue that this is just the way that international business looks like. Basically, that we're just going to have to live with this problem now as well as in the future.
I think it is really linked to the governance of a country. In some part of the world, we have countries where the governance is really weak, where civil servants are there not to serve their country, but to enrich themselves. So in that case, corruption is really an issue. Fortunately, in many countries, Western countries, it's no longer an issue with major call for tenders.
Now, just to come back to your role in all of this, one of your customers is EADS, the Aerospace and Defence Company. What are you telling them, basically, in order to improve this situation? What kind of mechanisms can they put in place?
It's true that the CEO of EADS, Mr. Tom Anders, has asked for a certification. It means that we are going to look at a couple of things. First, we are going to look at what is the quality of the communication on the ban of corruption. Is it clearly stated at the top level and duplicated within all the operations? Then we'll look at the kind of training which has been provided to the people within the company. Are we sure that all of them do understand what is corruption? Third, we are going to look at the processes enforced within the company, for instance, to control and to monitor all their third parties. And fourth, we are going to look at the way the control of these processes is organized.
So you're basically putting in place mechanisms with which the company will be able to look at itself and look at its own practices.
It's exactly a technical control that would be applied for a car. We will look at what are the mechanisms enforced within the company to make sure that nothing wrong will happen at the end.
But do you think that big companies like EADS, are they ready to do this, this kind of self-policing?
All of them have strong anti-corruption policies. Now, it doesn't mean that no one within the company will want to divert it and to bypass the rules and to pay a bribe, but most companies have those procedures. Now, certification will help them because as a third party, we do work with inspection companies like SGS or DNV, and they are carrying out the certification on our behalf with our terms of reference. So we have third parties looking at the quality of the policy enforced within the company.
Do you think that governments are doing enough to delve into these problems? You said before that perhaps corruption and bribery, that it's changing these days, that it's going through a third party and so on. Do you think that governments are keeping up with the times?
Some governments clearly, for instance, in the United Kingdom, clearly with the UK Bribery Act, with the UK Bribery Act guidance, there are clear recommendations on what companies should do to prevent corruption. Moreover, in the UK Bribery Act, the end of the guidance states clearly that companies might look at certification as a way to demonstrate that they have implemented the right procedures. Now, what governments could do worldwide is to ask companies to demonstrate what they have done to prevent corruption, to make sure that when they apply to a call for tender, then competition will be fair between companies who are really enforcing an anti-corruption policy and companies who are not.
All right, Philippe Montigny, we're going to have to draw a line under this discussion. Thanks very much indeed for taking the time to speak to us. And with that, we're going to wrap up Beyond Business. Thanks for watching France 24.